Hi, today I'm going to teach you about scales. All music theory begins with understanding scales, and in order to compose music, scales need to be understood and played correctly. Um, Scales are basically the foundation of the musical alphabet, and there are many types of scales. There are major, minor, jazz, blues, and all types of scales. But today I'm going to teach you about the C major scale. So the C major scale is pretty much the foundation of comparing other scales to major scales. It's the most commonly used scale, and basically if you understand how to play and what to listen for the C major scale, you can start to understand how other scales are created. So scales are basically used for composing music, and they're also used for understanding patterns in music. So if you can understand how to build a scale and the scale pattern formula, then you can basically build any kind of scale and compose any kind of music. So let me elaborate. So there's a pattern that is usually followed, and the pattern goes whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. It's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And I know that sounds confusing, but if you look at the keyboard, basically the half steps are only located between notes E and F and B and C. So if you remember where the half steps are located, you can basically understand how to play and build upon this formula for any kind of major scale. So these whole steps and half steps are called intervals, and intervals are the space between each note. So C and D is going to be a whole step because it's basically one full whole step in order to get from note C to E. And what that means is basically it has a black key in between these two notes. But notes like E and F and B and C do not have a black key in between them. As you can see on the chart here, there's no black key in between B and C, and there's also no black key in between E and F. So like I said, if you can remember that, then you can remember the major scale pattern. So, playing the whole step, half step pattern. So, when playing the scale, you have to know which fingers to put on which note of the keyboard. So what that basically means is it's different for left and right hand. So for left hand, you have to and if you use the right fingers, you'll always play the note correctly. So, always keep in mind the numbering of each finger. So usually in music, thumbs are 1, index fingers are 2, the middle fingers are 3, the ring fingers are 4, and the pinkies are 5. So, 1, and like I said, if you keep in mind which fingers go where, you always play the note correctly. So, like I said before, scales are basically used to compose music. Just like the regular alphabet, scales, each note makes up the full musical alphabet. And when you put each note together, you can make musical phrases and compositions. Just like if you put regular letters together, you make words which turn into sentences. So basically, for practicing scales, you have to do it consistently in order to get better at it. Just like anything else, it's going to be difficult the first time, but if you continue to practice every day and doing it consistently, you can get better at it and basically learn how to do it consistently, which can also increase your speed and accuracy. So, looking at the chart, you can see that each note, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, there's only 7 notes. Each of the 7 notes make up what's called an octave. And it's called an octave because there's 8 notes in each scale. It's technically 8, but C is used twice. So some say 7, some say 8. But it's called an octave, because of 8. So, as you can see, if I play both C notes, the notes within each octave are, just like the chart reads, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Keeping that in mind, you can understand that each octave is basically the scale. So just to review, scales are important for basically composing music and understanding the way music functions. They're also really good for learning how to read music and building your accuracy and speed when playing. So if you keep these things in mind, and you also consistently practice the scale, you can eventually learn how to play faster. Also, keeping in mind that if you use this whole step, half step pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, you can basically build any kind of scale, not just the C major scale. But the C major scale is not only the most common, but it's easy to compare the C major scale against other scales when hearing them, and it's also the most commonly used scale in the musical universe. So that's why I chose to start with this one. So, like I said, practicing scales. Keeping in mind that with using the whole step, half step pattern, when playing the scale, keeping in mind which fingers are labeled which. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, with that in mind, you can make sure that the finger is played on the right key at the right time, in time. So, like I said, and if you do this, repetition is key for practicing this and getting the right speed, accuracy, and learning how to understand the way the musical alphabet functions, and how to use scales to compose your own music. Anyone can learn a song in chords, like a C major chord. But in order to understand the way that chord functions, you need to understand scales. So a C chord, C, E, G, is within the scale, the C major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, E, G. by understanding scales, you can then move on to chords, and then eventually move on to phrases, and then eventually compose your own work. So basically, that is how you understand scales. And like I said, this is the C major scale. It's the most commonly used. It's easily comparable to other scales, and it's also the most commonly used scale in the musical universe. So, learning how to play scales is absolutely important, and that's how you play the C major scale.